Hey, what's going on? Welcome along to episode 31. Is it 31? I don't even know these days, do I? I think
32, I think,
it could
actually.
be 32. I think I've
Yeah.
made the mistake already, haven't I? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we get. Look, getting into it. We've always said from the beginning, look, we do this raw. There's no high tech studio. There's no
No,
script or anything like that.
no, that's
So
right.
yeah, take two. We'll go episode 32,
Yeah.
strategy and conversions podcast. I'm Jamie Michael Joseph, and as always, I'm joined by Mark Tanner. Now, Mark, we changed the format a little bit of the podcast in the last one. And we
Yeah.
said we're going to do some shorter, snackable kind of episodes lasting up to about 30 minutes. We're going
Yeah.
to bring some guests in at different times as well. But what we also say is we're going to break it down into different kind of sections, different categories. And this one is where we're going to look at a particular topic, and then
Yeah.
we're going to go around it in some different kind of ways, and give you some different views and hopefully some takeaways that you can use in your business, in your life, whatever it suits you. So Mark, I hand over to you to tell us what today's topic is all about.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Well, it's interesting because this was something I was thinking about just the other day, and it came back to me again today, and that's about how we need to be constantly learning about stuff, all the time. I mean, there's a whole thing, isn't there, that leaders, there's a quote that leaders are readers, and every day is a learning day. And sometimes you can learn from stuff that we do ourselves, but sometimes we have to learn from books or from other people. So what I wanted to do is just kind of like talk about a strategy for learning, really, if that's the right word for it. It's because it's such an important thing for especially business owners, but everybody, to be growing awareness, and they're growing their knowledge and skills. So I was just going to talk about this whole concept, and so it's a bit of a not a training session, but a bit of an awareness session, really. So one of the things that I've been told to do in the past, and I do now, so it's not just my idea, but it's been passed down from mentors, is all about reflecting on the week. And I do a lot of journaling, and I recommend that people do journaling, even if they don't do it in any a great amount of writing, simply because it reinforces lessons that we've learned. Because the memory is so unreliable that you think, oh, that's a great point, I'll remember that one, and you won't. 3 days later, you'll have forgotten it. So it's writing stuff down into a journal, or call it whatever you want. It doesn't have to be called a journal. It could be just a notebook or something. But writing, that's the whole point about writing. I don't know what it is. I think it's been scientifically proven somewhere that the act of writing actually triggers something else in the brain, which helps you to remember stuff and think more about it as you're writing it, as opposed to typing or tapping it into your phone. It doesn't have the same effect, apparently. So it's kind of reflecting on the week, or reflecting on the day, but reflecting on the week, and what you've learned from the week, and just making sort of little notes of what you've learned. And I come on to why we make note, why we want to be making notes in a second. And then if we're thinking about the week that we've just had, or the day, and maybe nothing springs to mind, because sometimes you might think you've had a bit of a boring week and nothing's happened, and you've just been going through some emotions, but stuff has, but you just can't recall it at the time. So there's nothing wrong with that, because if you can't come up with anything, then just think about, right, what skills do I need to brush up on? Is there a particular skill that you use in your business that your business works around? So, for example, in my case, it would be copy to a certain extent. Can I learn more about it? Because you always can. Can I read something else? Can I read someone else's opinion about writing great copy? Because I've got this model of great, but there's always things I can learn. There's always things you can add to it. So never, this is what we were saying the other day about leaving your ego at the door, wasn't it? Never let your ego think that you don't need to learn anything new. Because your ego will tell you that, I know everything. I don't need to, I know all the answers. You never do, and you never will. And if you delay reading and finding out, in fact, your knowledge skill base will go down. I remember, for example, when I used to work in IT back in the 90s, when mobile technology first came along, I was totally left behind because I had no interest in learning about mobile technology. So so the knowledge that I had in IT and applications was quickly made redundant because everything had moved on. It just changes so quickly. And talking about that, there's a great little post you put into, I think it was in Facebook, wasn't it, about how back in the day you had the helicopter and the guy with a camera filming outside the helicopter. Now it's all drones. It's all automated, both the camera and the flying. The pilot doesn't exist or isn't needed anymore, and nor's the cameraman, because it's all done on the drone. So it's quite interesting there. So learning new skills is keeping your ideas. Things may not, like in marketing, like we keep saying, not everything changes, but the way people look at things changes, and the way the different thought process behind it. And it's always handy to keep yourself ahead of that. So learning new skills is always, I'd always say, actually reading books or watching videos or whatever. And then reading as well just for awareness, especially self-development and that kind of thing. If you find you've got any kind of blocks over things aren't going right for you, why is it? Is it down to your own thinking? And there's so many books out there on different, awareness and how you can raise your own awareness. And then once you've done all that, is thinking about what you can then implement, because the way that learning is consolidated is if you read and you write something down and you learn it and it goes into your head, it's still not really consolidated until you put it into action and then find out if it works properly for you, because not everything will work properly. Something will need to be tweaked. So the whole idea of this learning thing is that once you've got a couple of things that you sort of think about and think, I could do that, implement one new thing, just one. It doesn't have to be loads. You don't have to do loads. Change or implement one new thing. Try it a different way and see how it works, and see how it makes things better for you. Just how it how it can suddenly make you think of things in a different light, or how it might be something new that you've never tried before and put it into practice. And then you'll have something to reflect on for the week, because you're trying something new. And then your reflection will be, right, okay, this is interesting. This worked well because, or this didn't work well for me. I wonder why. And then you ask your question, why? Well, what did I do? Why didn't it work for me? Was it something I was doing wrong? Or was this something I think I could do slightly better if I tweak this or tweak that, All those thought processes come out of doing something initially, to start. And I just wanted to, I don't know. And I was talking then about, there's a book I read years ago, and it's a difficult read. So by all means, people, if you want to read it, please do. But it's called How to Read a Book by a guy called Mortimer Adler. All right. A fascinating title, a book on how to read a book. And it's hard work. He was the compiler of Encyclopedia Britannica, I think, or something.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking going back, when Encyclopedia Britannica was a huge amount of, I don't know, it was 30 odd volumes or something, wasn't it? And it had everything in there. And he was the compiler and chief editor. So it's a difficult read, and he writes in that kind of style. But the points that came out of that, which I think are really, really good, and something, and I'll talk about something else in a second, is that the first thing to do is you're going to read a book. We're talking about a physical book here, and I know that some people think, what's a book?
Yeah.
Is it on Audible? And the point about the book, a physical book, is a book normally has a contents list. Obviously not a fiction book. I'm talking here about a book that's going to teach you stuff, of you whatever it is, not non-fiction book. It normally have a contents list. So the first thing to do is read down that list, and is there anything in there that really interests you, or anything there you need to know, or anything there that you think you need to know or would help? Because if there isn't, you're probably not going to really read it properly. So that's fine. If there isn't, put it to one side. You don't chuck it away, but you might want to read it again. So you might want to look at it another time. But you read down the contents list, you think, that could look, that one there, that looks quite interesting, or that looks quite interesting as well. Don't just read those bits initially. Then he says, scan read the book. Now, and what he means by that, he really literally means scan read. So it's, you open a page, you just glance your eyes down it. You don't try and read anything. Glance your eyes down it, look at the next page. And as you're glancing your eyes down, you may see a point, one line on there that you think, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Make a note of it. Again, physical note somewhere. Either you can even write in the book if it's your book, you know. But the trouble is, if you write in the book, you don't know where you've made the note because you've got to go back to find the page. So normally, take a note, make a note of it somewhere with the page number. I don't have to do any more than just even you can just write that line with a page number, and that could be that it's that you're going to go back to that again. And the reason for writing it down again is because as soon as you start writing something, you've got this whole writing thing with the brain. It starts to help the memory of you recording. Otherwise, you lose it. You can easily lose something. So you scan read the book and just note anything that stands out. You don't have to do any more than that at this point. And then when you've got then the next point was that once you've got this kind of small amount of notes, because you probably won't have made that many, depending, I guess, on how big the book was. You've got two courses of action that you can take. One is either if you pick the page number and it was in a certain chapter, for example, and that page number for that particular point, read the chapter, and then this time read it properly. Read it so that you take all the context of what was said before, then the point, and what was said afterwards. Read the chapter and see if there's anything else that springs to mind, and any more notes you can make while you're reading it. So that's one way of doing it. Or just read, if you want to read from cover to cover, which some people do, just say, okay, I'm going to read. It depends on how big the chapters are, for example. So if the chapters are small, you're going to read a chapter every day and take notes as well at the same time. So all the time you're taking notes. Or if the chapters are long, just say, okay, I'm going to read 10 pages every day. To most books have got like a logical break in chapters, haven't they? You can just read say 10 pages, make the notes on 10 pages, bang, you're already starting your process of learning. But on your notes, as you're taking them on that day, something may jump out and you think, right, how can I implement that now? How can I do that today and add that to whatever I'm doing to see how it benefits me? Because again, it comes back to that learning cycle. The learning cycle for me, and I know other people have different theories in this, the learning cycle for me is all about reading, and then you think about it. There's the reflection of it, but then it's putting it into action. And until you put it into action, you never really, well, I would say, learned it. You've got an idea. It's an idea still at that point, really, something that's been given to you. But it's like learning a language, isn't it? You know, you can learn theory. You read something, until you speak it, even into whatever apps you use on the phone, for example. Until you speak it and you find it's right, you never really learn it. You know, it's just all in your head. So with anything like this, until you do it and then think, was it right? So for example, learning a language, did I say it right? But was it able to understand? So Duolingo is a brilliant one, because Duolingo, you can speak into it, and they give you exercises, but one of them is you speak into it and does it make sense? And Duolingo is good for languages. So in this case, you put it into action. Did it work? Did it actually do anything? Did it help? And because if it did, great, and you've kind of learned it. Then if it didn't, then again, it's going back and looking at that chapter. Well, if it worked for the person in the book, why is it not working for me? And just kind of think, well, okay, what did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? Because one of the things I started learning, and don't get me wrong, I'm not really that good at this either. But one of the things I started to realize, I had all these books I wanted to read that would have taken me like 30 years. So I had to learn how to speed read. And I've never got on with speed reading because I'm, being that I love writing and all the rest of it, I love reading a book and, all the way through. And to be honest, that's tedious in some books. It's terrible. So I've really, really been teaching myself to speed read. And I'm not comfortable with speed reading, but it gives me enough to know whether that stuff I've just read is any good or not. And then I can go back to it and read it properly. But his point, Mortimer Adler, was the whole thing about repetition is the seat of learning, or we learn by repetition. And his point was that all these times, even when you read the content and then scan read, it's all going into your mind, even though you don't realize it. And then when you read it again, all of a sudden you've got all that repetition going on, and you start to pick things up and even pick new things up as you're going through it again. And then going back to this, as I was saying, read a part of that every day, or reflect on your week or your day, and then the next day implement one new thing. And if you do that, you really can start making a big progress. And I just write down here JFDI, just do it.
Exactly, yeah,
to put it, because sometimes you're never going to do it perfectly first time, ever. No one, well, I defy anybody to have done everything perfectly the first time around. That's why you implement, and then you think about what you've done and how it worked. But that's yeah. So it's a bit of education, but it's just it just dawned on me that we talk so much about marketing, which is, of course we do, because that's what we're about, and that's the kind of the lifeblood of the business. But to be a really good leader of a business or a business owner, you've got to know stuff. You've got to learn. You've got to be used to learning and reflecting, and you've got to get your skills got to be good. I'm not saying your skills are always going to be better than other people, because the whole idea of working smarter, isn't it, is to have people around you who maybe are better than you at something, and that you can tell them to do something. But again, this is the point that we made before: the difference between giving them and outsourcing it and delegating it. Once you understand what you're doing, you can delegate it and say, this is what I want, and let them do it. But if you don't know what you're saying, so I need you to do my social media marketing for me, because you don't really understand what's involved. They could do anything, and you need to be able to be aware of, okay, I don't want to be doing this, but I need to be aware of what I want from my social media marketing. So you say, so when you're delegating, you're saying, okay, this is what I want to get at. I want you to do that. I don't really care how you do it. I want you to do this, and this, so we get these results. And I think that's the art of delegating.
Yeah, that's, isn't it? We spoke about that a few times on the podcast. I know we go deep into it with our kind of training and on our programs and stuff like that, is that big shift away from outsourcing to delegating, and the process is just different. So instead of just outsourcing, where, like you said, you're looking for someone to come in because they have the skills, it's like, that's fine. You need those skills. So, but what you need to do is tell them what you want.
Yeah.
It's like you don't just go, you don't turn up to a job or something like that. You just say, I'm fine. I'll just carry on and do whatever I want. Someone's going to tell you what needs to be done, and you can get on and do it. But in business, for some reason, there's that element where where people just go, I don't know that. So, I just pass off to someone else. I just outsource to someone else. They know what they're doing. And it's like, yeah, they do. But the problem is they may go down a certain route, that is different to where you're going and stuff like that. But yeah, Mark, I love that kind of that real insight into learning. I was looking at the time, I was thinking, I'm not even going to get a word in today. It's it's an easy day for me. I should have went and made a cup of tea and stuff like that. But it is fascinating. I mean, there's so much around learning, isn't there? I mean, there's that story about I think it's Bill Gates, where apparently he takes like a week off every year just to go and read.
Yeah,
he just takes a load of books and just and does that whole kind of thing. It just takes stuff from it. I can remember listening to something with Grant Cardone. Right, I know we've mentioned him a few times on the podcast. We have. We like how he goes about things and stuff like that, and just his ways, whether we laugh at it or we respect it, But I remember him saying something where he just said, I've never read a bad book. What he said there is, he said, don't get me wrong, I've read some rubbish ones, but I've taken something from each one.
Oh, no, that's true. And that is so true, because this is the other thing about reading books, and this is why I think speed reading is also important, is that if you've got a book and you can take one thing from it, it was worth reading.
Yeah.
Even if the rest of it was just trash, it doesn't matter, because it's just helped you to learn something, and that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, it's spot on with Grant Cardone. Never read a bad book, because every book is worth reading that gives you something.
And that's the thing, isn't it? I think when you're talking about learning as well, is that we're not necessarily talking about learning brand new skills, like you said, a language and stuff like that. what we're talking about there is learning is just improving, innovating, just
Yeah.
taking something from it and putting that change into place. I mean, for myself, I mean, over the years, I've lost count of the amount of books I've read.
Yeah.
And you could pull out a book now and I'll say, yeah, I've read that one. And you say, what's it about? And I'll say, I don't really know. Yeah, no, it's that time's gone. You know, there's a few, don't get me wrong, there's a few which, you know, are really good and stuff like that. But over the past kind of 6 months or so, what I have done is every time I read a book, I take a highlighter and I start highlighting certain things. And like the stuff you were talking about there with learning, I mean, I have to do more of that. I know myself, I have to do more. And just that thing, like you said, of one, journaling. So that whole kind of thing is all well and good to see something in the book and highlight it and go, that's really good. Now it's got me thinking about something, but then I don't write that down what I'm thinking of at that time, you know, and then, you know, that will go. And then, like you said, actually putting it into action. I mean, I'll be honest, I think over the years, it's probably only been about 2 or 3 books that I've read like consistently, like all the way through it in a short period of time. I'm usually like, I read a chapter and I'll leave it for a couple of days and then I'll get back to it and all that kind of stuff. And I'm murder at finishing a book. I've probably got about 16 books on the side that I like half read. And the reason is I get bored, you know.
Yeah.
And that tactic that you said about is just, well, look, just read the good stuff, you know, the stuff that you want to know about first. Do that and then go back and you know read it all the way through.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, that's interesting because I used to do that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've got to hone up with this all the time. I don't read as much as I'd like to, and I want to be reading more as well. But I think when you find a book boring, it's interesting that because you got to ask yourself almost like, well, why am I finding it boring? And it's because and this I found this with a couple of books, is that it was because I was reading something and that I thought I could do that, and then skipping and going past it, and then not even thinking about it again, and then but if you stopped and thought, right, I could do that. When can I do it?
Yeah.
And you highlight it. Right, I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to put that, or even today, and you do that, and all of a sudden something works or something tweaks. Then the book doesn't become boring anymore because all of a sudden you thought, "Wow, that's an interesting point I got out of that book," and you start to and so you start to think, oh, maybe it's not as boring, and you kind of approach it with almost like different eyes. But don't get me wrong, I've read some stuff that I've never read again, and because I've thought that, you know, I just thought, oh, didn't get anything from that. But probably that was because at the time I wasn't thinking it the right way.
Different frame of mind, totally. I mean, we've had these conversations, you know, where I don't know if we've done them on the podcast or somewhere else where I've said that I've reread a book or I've read a certain passage or something like that where it's just hit me totally different. And I'm seeing things in a different way. And it, you know, and that's why I totally agree with you. That whole kind of learning thing. I mean, I went through a stage of time, probably about a good 3 years, where I was just like, not that kind of ego side, but I was just like, look, I know I'm good at what I do. I know that I know the industry, you know, I can hold my own. I can go and have an in-depth chat with someone in SEO, someone who builds websites, someone in social media, someone in ads. I can do that. I can go and do it. And I spent a lot of time, money, effort, everything to make sure that I stayed at the top of that game.
Yeah.
And, you know, even though I was at that level, I would still take courses or read books and stuff like that I would think were beneath me, as in that beneath that skill set. I already knew it because I would take something because it was a different way of looking at things and going, okay, this is an entry level course. You know, I'm always looking at things from an experience level. This is an entry level and it's saying to look at things this way. And I'm like, well, if I bring this now into the expert side, this is going to open up so many different avenues for certain things. Right. You take different things from it. And then I'll be honest. So with that, saying that there as well, I mean, I still feel like I'm at a decent level where I can have those chats and stuff like that. But I got to that stage where I really realized that, you know what, between 50 and 90%, you probably don't need to know unless you're doing that as a job each day. You know, so like the SEO and stuff like that. The other 50%, you need to know to make sure things are working and to get things done. And then that top 10%, no one ever needs to know anyway. You know, it's like that kind of thing. And then I know we had these conversations where, you look at more of the processes and breaking things down into how things work rather than what's needed.
Yeah.
You look at the why, and that there just helps you just speed up your learning, your implementation, the actual getting things done and getting results that you can then change things from the results, from new things that you read, and even the old things that
Yeah, and yeah, totally. And it's that it's that putting into practice thing, isn't it? Because I used to read when it came to self-development. This is where I probably well, I know I did. I used to read book after book after book after book because it was almost like a badge. Yeah, I've read that one, read that one,
exactly.
read, and do nothing with them. You take massive amount of notes. I mean, books, there's piles of notebooks full of these books. Yeah, I've read that. I've read Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, I did that one. I read. Oh, I've done that. And then one day I thought, so why is my life not changing? Why I've read all these books and nothing's changing? And you realize that because reading isn't enough, learning isn't enough.
Yeah.
Learning without action is a waste of time. It's wasted. It really is a waste of time because all you think of all the time you've invested in reading those books and done nothing with it. Well, what a waste of time was that? But when you read it,
so there's a great example of that as well. I mean, I didn't read it. I don't know for why, but I can remember going back around 2012, 2013 sort of time. There was a book that was around called The Laptop Millionaire.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I never read it, and it was kind of around, and I was involved in internet marketing and all this kind of stuff, online marketing, and I always I think that kind of term, laptop millionaire, I can remember seeing ads and stuff like that, and people on beaches, and I remember just thinking it's probably a scam, they're probably just trying to sell something in there. I never read it, and then I want to say around 2016, 2015, something like that. I bought it. Like I bought like a bundle of books, and that was included and stuff like that. And I didn't read it then for another kind of 3 or 4 years. So it was only like a year or so ago that I actually read it. And I don't know for why I read it. It was on the shelf, and I was like, I moved house. I found it. Moved house. I found it, and I was like, I'm gonna have a little read through that and just see what it was they were talking about. And probably 80% of the stuff in there was all outdated. Right, it's not stuff that works anymore. But that period between 2012 and 2015, if I would have just copied what it told me to do in the book, I would have been, I'll be retired somewhere with my own island.
Yeah, I know.
Because the information in there was so good that it was, looking back now, it was spot on. And I guess that there's probably a few different books at that time that some were probably nonsense, some were really good. But that there is just like, if I've read it now, there's a few good things in there, but there's not much I can do with it because it's all irrelevant stuff. It's all old sort of stuff, that doesn't really exist now. Technology is advanced, and marketing platforms have advanced, and it's just like that whole thing there is that sometimes we're training, you have to just get on and do it, and get it and put it into action, and have it start working. And like you said, it may not be perfect, you may fail, but the thing is that you'll keep going.
Exactly.
Get it right,
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's that whole continuous improvement thing, isn't it? This is kind of part of that continuous improvement spiral, is that you learn something new. Whether it's something that you've reflected on what you've done, and you think about, I did this last week. How did it go? It didn't go really well. Now, why was that? And you think, because I didn't. You go back to whatever you read or whatever ideas you had, and you think, there's something I didn't do. So you think, right, okay. So that was you did it, you reflected, so you take another action, you do that again, but this time put that in. And all of a sudden, suddenly you think, wow, that's made a different, that's produced a different result. And then you think, right, okay, so how can I make that better? And it comes, that continual spiral. And going back to the self-development stuff, when I realized, when it came to it, the stupid thing about it, is that every book I read said, you've got to put this into action. And you ignore it. You go, I'll do that. I'll do that next week. Yeah, of course I will. And you just ignore it. Yeah. And then one day I thought, and it just hit me when I thought, I'm not taking any action on any of it. So I started putting things to action, and that's when things started to change. And you start to think that you start to realize that that when you do something, you think, wow, okay, there is something in this. I'm not just reading it, and then you do something else and something, and again, it's just that momentum spiral.
That is the real secret, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah,
The real secret is to take action, is to put
yeah.
things in action. You know, move towards what you want by taking action.
And do you know what? It's interesting because talking about, so when I first read The Secret back in 2006, I think it was, I read it, and it gives you this fanciful picture of how life can be and all the rest of it, and that's all grand. And there's a bit in there from Bob Proctor. That kind of book made him, well, the film as well made him quite, was the icing on the cake for his fame, if you like. But there's a bit in Bob Proctor says, and he says, you must take action. But he said, but remember, you must take action. He kind of like that on the film. He said, you must take action. And he just skipped past that.
Yeah.
Because you just think, oh, I can just wish and everything will change.
Thoughts become things, yeah.
Yeah. And thought, yeah, exactly. But interesting, I read, where was it? I read something. Now, in fact, it was from Bob Proctor. I read something from Bob Proctor, and apparently in the making of the film, The Secret, they had a whole piece on taking action and what you need to do and how you needed to put things in place. And the directors of the films dropped it because they didn't think it would make it like it was wonderful.
Yeah.
So they dropped this whole section from the film, and that was all about how you need to take action on everything you do, everything you read and everything you learn.
I think that's it. That there is perfect, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. You know, I mean, we say it, don't we? It's just like, look, the stuff that we do, it requires work, it requires effort.
You've got
but it's work in a smart way.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what puts people off, isn't it? As soon as you say, well, look, you have to put some effort in, you have to put some work in, they start thinking, do you know what's the point? But what we're saying is just like, do you know what, smart work, meaning that you're taking the steps in the right direction. So you're going to get to that destination at some point. You know, it just depends how fast you want to get to it.
Yeah.
I think, we're starting to wrap things up because we said these new episodes are going to be about half hour. So
yeah, we said we keep it short.
We're about there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you to summarize this episode into like a few bullet points. But just before we get into that, as always, I think is good just to, just explain really some of the stuff that we do with strategy and conversions, because obviously what we do with these podcasts, we do this to kind of educate, to show people our knowledge as well, to show that if you do need that extra bit of help, we are here to help you. And what we've done is set up different programs, different clubs, different kind of products as well to help you with that. One of the big things that I guess our kind of flagship product right now is what we call Momentum Builder. So this is a program that takes you over 12 months. So, I kind of summed it up earlier as saying, if you want to learn, earn, and turn your business into the income that you want, this is for you. Because what we do is we go for everything. We go through the strategy side, we go through the mindset side, we set everything up to basically get you to start earning money from your business, from your product or service, whether you're starting from scratch or if you're looking at adding different channels into your business or something isn't quite working. We look at how to get that working, and then we look at building things on top. So these programs are suitable for everyone who is ambitious, who wants to move forward. And so we've basically priced it really low and added in every kind of element that we think would be needed. We spent a lot of time, money, and effort on this to get it to the stage where we've got the members area, we've got the app, you've got coaching, training, support, guidance, everything in there, to help you move forward. So if you've ever want to get involved in kind of online marketing, making money online, starting up a business, or just get that business to creating the lifestyle and income that you want, we've created the steps here to help you with that. So we'll put a link wherever you're listening to go and check it out. But yeah, just wanted to chuck that in. I know sometimes we've had people before where they've listened to the podcast and they've said, can you help us? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And it's like, maybe we should tell people a bit more within these episodes that we can help them, and we do have products and services to help them. So yeah, just wanted to summarize that part there. And then just get on to kind of the bullet points on to summarize the whole episode.
Right. Okay. I got 4, really. Okay. And that would be initially to reflect or read. That's just to do with improving, kind of self-improvement on skills and business, really. Reflect and read. learn the theory of what you've, so you take notes and think about the theory of what you've read, and then understand how you can put that into action, then put it into action, and then go back to reflect and read.
I love it. My big takeaway from that whole, from everything that you went through, it is all about skipping to the parts where, I want to learn that, rather than trying to learn everything from the book. And I think the amount of times that I've read 2, 3, 4 chapters on someone's life, and when they were in college, and they get into this stage and that stage, and then they were in this job, and it was just like, I've put the book down before finishing it because I'm just like, I'm bored now, when really I didn't even need to read all that. So those are my takeaways, where I'm just going to say, okay, like anything I'm learning, if I'm watching a video, if I'm reading a book, I'm getting to the part that I want to know about. And that I guess as well as that, that gives you some motivation. Like we say, that motivation compounds momentum, and you get to move forward then to actually put things in action and moving it along. And I know we did the training in Progression Club the other day. So one of our clubs that we have, and I said about this quote that I heard, that I'm going to try and just steal it to be my own in some sort of way, and it said that you can learn anything, but you can't learn everything.
Yeah.
I think that fits perfectly for this episode. Is that?
Yeah, it's true enough. Yeah, indeed.
You can learn anything you want. It just takes the time, effort, and putting things into action.
The internet, books and the internet together are the biggest library in the world. There's everything. You can learn absolutely everything about everything, but there's no point learning about everything because you can't implement it.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly it. And I guess I was talking about our programs and stuff like that. I guess the whole point is that there's so much information out there that sometimes you want a bit of a shortcut to know.
You want to
put things in place. Yeah. And I was going to say as well about it basically stops then the trial and error.
Yeah.
And I saw that somewhere in a book, actually, a book from years ago that I was rereading the other week, and it said trial and terror. How good is that? That is it, isn't it? Because sometimes you get things wrong and it's just panic mode.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, Mark, we can talk again for another half hour, but
we could.
We're going to try and keep these short. So as always, if you need more from us, if you want us to talk about a certain topic or anything on this podcast, and get in touch with us, contact@strategyandconversions.com. Message us on any platform, and like I said, check out the link if you want to see the Momentum Builder program. But other than that, Mark, I really enjoyed this episode.
It's been a pleasure.
It's always been a pleasure, mate. I'll catch you next time.
Okay. Cheers, everybody.